Oh, today I'll be presenting the scenario for Musicians Incorporated, or Muse Inc. for short. They sell equipment insurance and public liability insurance for musicians and venues. They operate globally across the United States and Africa, India, etc. Their objectives are to replace their current access database with a unified Salesforce CRM solution. And some of the risks identified is that since we are replacing a bunch of databases that are posting access, that we may have some poor data quality since they are essentially flat files. And so we'll need to set up data stewardship, a role there for aligning with business stakeholders on the data quality standards and the source schema and the target schema mapping as well. Another risk identified is that there will be tight coupling with the World Bank for the contracts themselves. We'll need to decouple that coupling for the contract and the agreements through an ESB. And then finally, we have the photos that are going to be integrated with MuleSoft intelligent document processing for the serial numbers. Of course, poses the risk of having errors that are a result of poor photo quality. So we'll need to make sure that error handling is in place within Salesforce so that the users are requested to take another picture if it is bad quality. Some of the assumptions I made is that Salesforce will be the system of record for insurance claims and policies. On to the actors. Internally, we have the general admins that receive Service Cloud license, along with the Service Cloud license, along with the claim specialist who will receive Service Cloud license, account managers and execs all receive Service Cloud license. Since we are not selling here, we are simply covering insurance and facilitating claim coverage for liability damage. The external users include the musician union partner managers that receive partner community license, along with the equipment partner managers that receive partner community license, since they are managing these accounts for the equipment partners as well as the musician unions. They will need to have access to be able to set up records, set up users, manage those user records. Additional case here is the fact that they have a hierarchy of users that they will need to have visibility of their subordinate within their account. And then we have musicians that receive customer community license for access to their own records and access to the system. We implement the org with a single org. We'll have multi-language enabled for the languages that include English, French, Spanish, and Kannada. The multi-language will be facilitated by translation workbench and a translation point of contact that translates the metadata. And then we'll enable multi-currency with the corporate default currency being the United States dollar. Salesforce solution has installed the Salesforce Voice. Chargent will be installed for the payment collection, Shield for the ability to do setup audit trail. And then Salesforce Voice integrates with Amazon Connect, that integrates to their existing third-party telephonies that are in each different office. So essentially, Amazon Connect federates the calls through its CTI integration layer, and that will then facilitate the telephony integration. The internal users will authenticate, actually all users will authenticate using SAML via Okta, and Okta will then federate identities from Active Directory. The external users will authenticate using OIDC via Facebook and X that return ID tokens that are validated by the auth provider. The musicians will also have access to a musician claims app that is hosted and published via Mobile Publisher. That Mobile Publisher will be an app version of the customer or musician portal itself for them to upload pictures of their assets or make claims for damages. We take an API-led approach through an ESB that exposes reusable APIs. This will also be secured by JOT, job-based trust model, and MTLS. The ESB will facilitate the integrations with the WorldBank services, actuary calculation service, as well as a serial check database. The ETL will facilitate the migration of data from the Access database, which includes that CRM data, and we migrate it into Salesforce. Okay, move on now to the requirements. We'll start with the new customers, which are the individual parties for the amateur, individual, and band. They will authenticate to the portal directly. They will sign up, and they'll be redirected to the portal via these advertisements. The individual users, when they do sign up, they'll register. They'll be created as an account, a contact, as a person account, and then they'll be able to create an order for a standard policy that will cover equipment to the value of $10,000 and public liability insurance as well. The modeling for the insurance contracts is it goes from the service contract down to the contract line item that reports the different items, as in the equipment that will be covered, and then the assets reports the equipment, including its serial number, and this is the master data record for the equipment that's covered. The band will follow a similar process, except that they will use a business account with individual contacts, and those individual contacts will be covered individually through an asset as well. So you have a contact that reports the individual person, and then the asset will look up to the contact as well for that coverage as well. There will be an ability for the band members to also add additional policies on top of their existing service contract, and also just establish a new contract. Anytime they establish a new contract, they will create an order and then the associated order line items for the actual policy that they're seeking to purchase. And those policies then are reported upstream as products. Those are the different policy records and then the price books for the different countries. As soon as the service contract is created, the content they'll be able to then upload for the different assets they're seeking coverage on, pictures that are stored as content documents and look up to the assets. As soon as they do upload the pictures, there will be an intelligent document processing that will record the serial number for the different assets. So there will be an integration where a content document is created, and then the content document makes a call out to intelligent document processing to then extract the asset serial number. The asset serial number is then recorded on the asset record as an update. So once the asset serial number is added, there will be a call out from via MuleSoft as a request and reply call out to the manufacturing databases that expose APIs for the validation of the serial number, and then to return the asset value. The value is stored then directly on the asset itself. The information is stored on the asset and then exposed within the UI for the musicians to then validate and also see it. As soon as an order, though, is created and the order line items are created, there will be the creation of a chargent record that allows for them to select the payment schedule that they want. If the payment schedule is, if they choose to pay on a scheduled basis, then the coverage will stop if a payment is missed, and this will be all automation that's based on the chargent order records. On the first payment that they make via chargent, that will then update the service contract itself with the activated status, and then update the start date as equal to today. The agents will be able to then view the status of the service contracts that are created, and the chargent will facilitate of course, the payment and then the tokenization of credit card information as well. With an external gateway, which the external gateway in this case is Stripe. I didn't call it out in the system landscape, but we'll have Chargent as the intermediary between Stripe and Salesforce. The service contract, once it's activated, will make a call out to the World Bank service. The World Bank service uses SOAP API, and then MuleSoft will facilitate the response from the World Bank service to Salesforce for if the coverage is valid. The service contracts for musician unions follow a very similar process, except that the service contracts aren't specifically covering specific assets. They're instead covering the just a flat amount for the including 5,000 pounds for equipment and then 500,000 pounds for personal liability insurance. Those are just individual two different contract line items that are recorded per musician. The musician unions are stored as accounts, and then their members are stored as contacts under those accounts. Then above the union account, there is the union owner, which will administer the actual members and who is allowed on the under the union for the cases where they can't integrate with the solution. For the cases where musician unions can integrate with Salesforce, there will be experience APIs exposed via MuleSoft that will then create the actual musicians as contacts under those union records. The individual membership, the unions follow the same sort of process for add-ons where they will create orders and order line items for additional policies that they want to order. And then once the policy is activated, there will be a retrograde flow with the World Bank service via using SOAP service, that is request and reply, and then MuleSoft orchestrates the update back to Salesforce. And then the third channel, which is the professionals, performers in the venues, they're complex, but we're going to break down the complexity through the object model. We'll have the accounts stored as the venues, and then any the account executives will be the owners of those venues that will then have access to the records that are associated with the venues as well. If there's a tour that's being undertaken for that venue, then that account executive will then create an order, and then the order line items for the different details. And those details are itemized as order line items, and then look up to products that detail standard pricing for the logistic information and the equipment information and the product travel information, so that we can then create a service contract that includes all those details as contract line items. The actuary calculation will be used to calculate premium payments based on the order and the order line items. The order submission will trigger a retrograde flow. That is a request and reply with the actuary calc APIs that calculate the totals that are stored on the order. The payments for the services will be paid by the actual via the account, but it's at the discretion of the account owner based on the risk level. So we'll have a screen flow on the order to determine whether or not to create a charge-in order that requires the payment up front or to allow for it to be scheduled. But regardless, on the first payment, we'll activate the service contract, which triggers the call out to the World Bank service via MuleSoft, and then World Bank service returns the validity to Salesforce. At the end of the day, for all these different channels, the service contract will trigger a DocuSign envelope that's sent to the parties that need to sign it. That's emailed to them using the DocuSign managed package. And then the certificates that are signed and returned to Salesforce will be hashed using an algorithm, and then that hash for the signature is stored at the service contract level. And so what that does is it ensures that that a certificate or the signature, the certificate itself is not been modified, since if a hash is the hash ensures that comparing the hash ensures that the original original value is the same um, as the value to be compared. So as soon as the so as soon as it's been stored as a hash value on the service contract, that will be able to be used for validation by the venues for validating the validity of the service contracts and making sure that they're not modified. And then finally, the ability to record all calls is facilitated by Salesforce Voice with the CLI with Amazon Connect, CTI rather, CTI with Amazon Connect integration. The proof of the public liability insurance is will be done using that validation of the hash value. We'll also enable web service callouts for the validation of the hashed value via APIs that are exposed within MuleSoft. So what they'll do is they'll pass the hashed value into the they'll make a call out to the experience APIs exposed by MuleSoft that will then be a hash validator, and then that will turn Boolean true or false for a valid contract. And then and then there's also going to be an additional service for them to validate using emails and voice channels. We'll have an email triggered API call as well. That will be a separate service enabled by MuleSoft. And then the voice channel will also be facilitated by Salesforce using Salesforce Voice that will require that at the end of the tone that they input the hash value, and then that will then trigger an API call. But actually typing in a hash value into a phone is probably not realistic. So what we'll do instead is have Salesforce Voice create a case record that records the person's information, and then the service agent will be able to follow up with the the inquiring person, using that case record, and then that will facilitate that. So with the claims, those will be recorded as case records within Salesforce. Those are private records since they have restricted visibility based on what your role is. The photos of the damage for claims will be stored as content documents that are related to the cases. And then once a case is created, that is routed via omnichannel to a queue that's based on the claim that is made. If the claim is under 10,000 pounds, then it will go to the regular team, so that regular queue. If it's above that, then it will go to the high value queue. There will be validation rules not only for the policy activation. So if it's an active policy, now there will be a validation rule for that for claims, since they are related to the service contract as well. And then there will be an additional validation via an Apex trigger for the photographic evidence as well, before these can be submitted. The claims agent will then process the claims from their queues that they're assigned to. So it'll be the normal queue, and then the high value queue they'll be able to pick from. There's no specific lead times, and there is also no description for omnichannel routing. So we'll just have a case assignment rule, and then we won't use omnichannel instead. The equipment that will need to be repaired will be stored, and their associated partners for the repairs themselves will be stored under the work orders that are related to the cases. So we'll have a work order for any additional work that will need to be performed by additional parties, including the service repairs, the service repair parties. And then for any repairs that will need to be done on specific items, those will be stored as work order line items under the work orders. And then payments that are made from the World Bank service to the policyholder's bank account details are going to be facilitated by World Bank service, but World Bank will be subscribing to webhooks that will be from the work orders once they are completed and facilitated by MuleSoft. Each claim will be assigned to a dedicated PLI claims handler. The PLI cases will be following the same process where we have a case that's created manually. The cases themselves have restricted visibility to the PLI handler, so they'll own the cases if they are PLI handler that is responsible for it. And then there will be lookups on the cases themselves for the venue, which is the account, performant, which is the asset or the account for individuals, and then the claimant, which is the person account, which would be a separate party that would be accessing the system as well. Or it could be just a set of fields for, because there's no call out here for a claimant having access to the system. Yeah. No, actually, let's keep it at the person account level, and then that will be a separate person account for the claimant, since they are the policyholder as well. The claim handlers will own the case, and then they have access to the work order and the work order line item for the coverage. There will be logic around whether or not there's VP approval that's required. If the work order is submitted and it's going through the process and it has a settlement that's greater than 50% of the PLI coverage, then that will go to the VP using an approval process. And then any negotiations will be recorded using Salesforce Voice, any discussions on negotiations, and then any in-person meetings will be documented and recorded and then signed off on using DocuSign. Okay, so from a data migration perspective, what we'll be doing is migrating essentially all the records from the Access databases into Salesforce. Of course, there's risk around migrating from the Access flat files database, flat file-based databases, since they are essentially dispersed across different countries. So what we'll be doing is using a data steward to ensure that we are profiling the data initially and then assigning, ensuring that since we are using a single org here, ensuring that there is a transformation that occurs so that it aligns with the data target schema that's described here for the current policies and the assets. And then the data steward will, of course, create a staging table for the ETL process, and that will merge all the data, deduplicate it, cleanse it. They will then run rehearsal migrations to staging, to UAT, and eventually in production. And then there will be a delta load for any changes that have occurred since the rehearsal migrations. That will lead to a controlled cutover that is to production for the data itself on the go live, and then that, of course, they'll followed by smoke testing done by the end users. Visibility wise, we have the users that are in Office that should only see the customers and associated records for the countries. We'll have just criteria-based sharing rules for the accounts, where there's not that many different regions or countries, so we'll be able to use that for the different accounts and their offices. And then we'll have a public group for the different users as well, and they'll be assigned to them. The claim handler and VP of claims will have access to the case records that they own, and the VP of claims will have access via the role hierarchy. VPs require access to all issues policies that will have view all via permission set. The claims team will require access to equipment claims for their region. There will be case teams that are assigned to different regions. Equipment partner managers will be able to see equipment for their associated with themselves that have a total value for the manufacturer that's greater than 15,000. There will be an LWC for that purpose. The professional performers are handled by account executives, and so those account executives, like I mentioned, will have access to will own those accounts, and then they'll have private account ownership, and the accounts themselves would be private as well. We Shield enabled for the full audit access and set up audit access and the event monitoring for that compliance there. And then finally, on reporting, we have the regional VPs that require access, a list of all policies that have had claims in the last 3 months in the region. They'll have access through their role hierarchy, and then they'll be able to create reports using standard reporting. The account executives will have standard reporting as well to be able to report on service contracts and related accounts. They'll be able to print a full list of policy details for their customers themselves. And finally, we have the musician union partners that have visibility of all the members. They'll have access since they are the top contact under that musician union account. They'll have visibility to all of their subordinate contacts themselves. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.